Good morning, shipbuilders. Kyle here, coming to you from 1433 South 8th Street in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Talk a little bit today about priority standards as it applies to standards-based learning. So as you can see, we've got our mission up on top, and today I've highlighted deep understanding and vertical alignment of priority standards as the essential pillar that we're going to be looking at. So I want to talk a little bit about the criteria that you want to keep in mind when you're identifying your power standard. And mind you, I want to use the words power and priority interchangeably. We've been using those interchangeably as a district for some time now, so don't get hung up on the semantics there. Power, priority, same, same. So the standards criteria have really three things that you want to look at: endurance, leverage, and readiness. And the definitions for those three things are below. Endurance being the knowledge and skills of value beyond a single test date. So essentially, we wouldn't get to the end of a particular unit and say, okay, we're not going to learn this anymore. We're going to keep on moving. Leverage being knowledge and skills of value in multiple disciplines. So not only does it apply in science, but also in math and possibly history. And then finally, readiness for the next level of learning. So knowledge and skills that are necessary for the success in the next grade level or in the next level of instruction. A good example would be like a claim, evidence, and reasoning is somehow being a part of a power or priority standard. As being a former science teacher, I know that we used that quite often and see that in the social studies and English settings as well, and I'm sure it can be utilized in math too. So that would be something that would be enduring, have leverage, and be ready for, allow students to get ready for the next level of learning. Just an idea of what they are a little bit closer. So teachers will spend the majority of their instructional time on these particular power priority standards. They're what you'll assess in those summative assessments. Teachers have data-driven discussions about these within your PLCs. These are the need to knows for your students. They got to be able to leave the class really, really fundamentally knowing these standards. And they're what really drive your enrichment and your intervention times. When you're considering whether to select one similar standard over another, to determine which one is more comprehensive or rigorous, not the one that's more foundational. So when you're going to have a bunch of priority standards to review from the state, you're not going to be able to identify them all as priority or power standards. So keep this in mind, this particular tip, when you're trying to identify what those power or priority standards are. Which one is more comprehensive and which one is more rigorous, not one that's more foundational. That can apply to many different areas and levels. So here's the process to give you some specifics. If you're working your collaborative teams and you don't necessarily know where to start, or maybe you're caught up a little bit, the team's going to discuss endurance, leverage, and readiness to make sure the team members have common understanding. Referring back to this presentation, it would be a good start. Then each team member works independently. So do this on your own to apply the criteria to the list of state standards. And if you click this link, you're going to get this particular document to open up. And so you'll place the standards here in the left column, and then endurance, leverage, and readiness. You can go ahead and select yes or no, and then provide a little bit of rationale there. Finally, when you're done with that, each team member is going to work independently to apply the criteria. The team builds consensus about which standards belong on the draft list. That's the next area. So you'll all compare this particular prioritizing standard document and figure out which ones are going to be your priority standards. Next, compare the draft of power standards to the state blueprint of what is likely going to be emphasized on the statewide assessments. So here are the statewide assessments that we do follow. If you scroll down to the ACT Aspire and the ACT Plus Writing, you're going to find your discipline. You can click that open and you'll be able to identify where those priority standards are being highlighted within those state assessments. And then finally, to narrow down even further, the team may also look at some longitudinal data to see how we are doing on those particular areas. So you can take a look here on the bottom. You'll find where we're proficient or where we're not, some longitudinal data. And you can identify what are some of the areas that we need to hit harder or make sure that we prioritize because they are being tested. And maybe we're doing very well, or maybe we're really struggling in those areas. So for example, look at some longitudinal data. I'm in the science area, and I can see that we've had a drop off here in scientific investigation. So I look to see where that is highlighted or where that is prioritized in our standards. And I probably make sure that that is a particular priority or power standard that I'm hitting at those different levels. A little bit about power and priority standards. We'll talk more about that at our Friday staff meetings as we go forward. Thank you, shipbuilders. Have a great week.